Good guys, we're back to episode, I believe, 3 of Powerlifting Talks. Today we'll be going over static holds, on bench press specifically. Now, I went over static holds very briefly before on squats and kind of why they're important. I'll get into a bit more detail today and also kind of want to talk about general questions that I personally had, aka like how can I manage this with fatigue and how's a good way to implement this? When should I do this? Should I do this before my big sets? Should I do this after my big sets? I'll be answering all those questions today. And of course, like normal, warming up at the bar, really get the movement pattern down for bench. Now, generally for me, let's get into how to warm up into a static hold. Now, what I would do, for example, this is my heavy day. Every other heavy day, I'll do static holds. And a new thing which I'm going to start doing is even on my my 1 rep max days, I'm going to do a static hold heavier than I am going to press. Now, I do this for a couple of reasons. Well, to be fair, I haven't actually done this yet on a PR day, but I will be because I think it's hella worth it. Because the 2 times that I have done this on my bench sessions, all my other sets were way better than I've ever done before. Like, it's insane. Now, let's briefly go over why this works. There's a couple of reasons. There's a really nerdy, fancy way, which basically means you're picking up a weight that you won't be able to press, so your body has to recruit more muscle fibers going into it. So it's almost a way to like hack into your brain to get your body to fire more muscle fibers. Because as a regular person who trains, you only have access to about 70-ish% of your muscle fibers. I think this honestly can increase that to 75 to 80%. Now you're probably wondering, if you don't know, why doesn't your body always use 100% of its muscles? Well, that's mainly because if it did, it would tear itself apart and break your own bones. Our muscles are way stronger than you think they are. Another main reason is it mentally prepares yourself. Because think about it this way. Have you ever went for a PR and you're kind of nervous because you haven't even felt how heavy this weight's going to be? Let's say you're going for a 225 bench. You've only ever benched 205. 205 compared to 225 is kind of a big difference mentally speaking when you're feeling the weight. But let's say you've already done static holds with like 255. Well, now you go into your 225 bench being like, hey, I have felt a good amount heavier for this. So it kind of calms your nerves. It really helps mentally. Those are the main reasons. And another thing, another question I feel like most people have is, which I had before I started doing static holds, is like, are they fatiguing? The answer is kind of yes and no. They are not fatiguing in the way that you do your static hold and you're like, oh my god, that you took a lot out of me. It is fatiguing in a way that you have to recruit so much muscle fibers. But this is the weird thing. You do a static hold and it feels like a set of RPE 10. But then you rack it and you kind of take a breath and you're like, oh, it really feels like an RPE4 kind of set. So honestly, they're not too fatiguing. I would not be concerned of adding these in and have to worry about, oh, I'm going to be so fatigued now. Is this going to affect the rest of my workout? If anything, you'll notice in this video, it affected my workout in the best way possible. So my sets are going to be 245 today. But after benching 225, I still want to warm up my joints and my muscles to get ready for the weight. So before I ever do my big static hold set, I'm always going to do a static hold set that of weight that I can already do. I can already bench 275, and I will hold this for about 10-ish seconds. Now when I say 10 seconds, and you look at the actual video, maybe it's not 10 seconds. I'm counting right now, and I was just shy of 10 seconds there. It's mainly 10 seconds in your head. So this is my big static hold weight. And if I don't do that other set, then A, this could be really bad because I couldn't really anticipate how heavy it's going to be. This is the heaviest static hold bench I've ever done. And then the only thing is I would do more of these sets. I only end up doing 2 in this video. But mind you, it might not be too fatiguing on the brain, but it can be fatiguing on the joints. For example, after this, my wrists were kind of hurting, even with the wrist wrap. So that's why you shouldn't do these every session. I think every other bench session's a good idea. I still wouldn't do these on my lighter days when I'm talking about weight, not intensity. Just because, again, it's kind of hard in the joints, and you don't always want to put a lot of strain in your joints, and you can get into problems that way. Now again here, the whole time I'm doing this, I'm practicing breathing, well bracing and keeping everything super tight. It can also just help your body know how to stay tight more, because if you're not tight here and you bend too much or you bring the bar out too far or any of these things, the bar is going to crush you. Now my spotter here, all he's doing is making sure that that bar is not going to fall, and he's going to help me rack it. Helping me rack it's fine. I still very recommend people to unrack it themselves. I think this is very important because it also teaches you how to do a heavy unrack, which that alone could be hard for some people. Like I talked about in my last bench video, some people they'll push up with their shoulders. You can't really do that when you're doing a static hold, and if you're doing heavy enough. Okay, now this is why static holds are awesome. I have never benched 245 for 6 pause. I've done it for 8 unpause. No, sorry, 7 unpause. But again, after that, I picked this up, and in my head, I'm like, oh my god, that was light. And I also feel like it gives you a better sense of how to move your body correctly when you're actually benching here. Like, I'm not sure if you can really tell, but in my head, when I was doing this session, I was locked into this session. Also, another thing you might notice, I'm not even wearing headphones. I forgot my headphones these days, but I still did the best I've ever done. And that was my 6th rep. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god, let's go. I've never done that before. You see, I even said let's go. Now again, in my head, picking up 245 felt so much lighter. And it helps so much because there's a lot of times where, honestly, the only reason why your muscle stops working is because your CNS is telling it to stop. Like your brain's being like, hey, I can't handle this. But if you've already picked up a super heavy weight and you just held it there, it's like you're not nervous really going into it. Again, you have felt a weight heavier than you're going to be able to press in the moment. Now, something I want to go over is how much more weight. I kind of talked this about my squat video, but for me, you could really either do about 5 or 10% over your 1 rep max. So basically, as you get stronger, the more weight that you're going to add to your static hold is going to be farther apart from your PR. Let's say you're not too strong, your PR is 100 pounds. You could do 110 pounds, and that'll be a big difference. For me, I've benched 295 pause for 1, so I can go all the way to like 345 and still hold it well. Really, as long as you make sure that you're not gonna the bar's not gonna fall on you and you have a spotter and you're good and it doesn't hurt your joints too much, probably a good weight. Now, I think you should be able to add 5 to 10 pounds between every single static hold session. Easily. Because I felt this has increased my 1 rep max so much. I used to always be kind of scared intimating with it because, again, I was scared of the extra fatigue. It's not really fatiguing. It literally feels like a set of EP4 in your head, but it's really like a set of EP8 on your joints. So always be careful of that. Mainly your wrists here. I'm going for my 3rd set. Also, it's a little form technique I've changed. Is I still do my calves in front of the bench so I can push away and my calves kind of lock me in more, but I've kind of almost scooted up the bench just a little bit more so the upper part of my calves is holding me. I can get a little bit more of an arch here. Again, great benching from me. Another thing you might notice between elite bench pressers is even as that bar speed slows down, you have so much more left in the tank just because you know how to press really good. Kind of underrated here. Okay, we go into our last set here. Now, also because I did those 2 static holds, even though they're not that fatiguing, I only end up doing 2 sets of incline bench. Also because my wrist is kind of hurting, and yeah, they are tiring, but they aren't tiring. It's really weird. Okay, this is my last set of 245 here. Again, guys, even though I have no headphones here, I'm really concentrated and I'm really locked in. Now, I want to briefly go over lats. I know I had a whole video on lat engagement, but something I kind of forgot to mention is, yeah, you're meant to feel your lats, but this is how I like to feel it in my head. When that bar is coming down, I'm almost absorbing that weight in my lats. Like, how I like to teach people is don't feel the weight necessarily in your arms and in your chest. You want to feel the weight kind of in your lats and in your hands. Now again, I've mentioned this before, even though my muscle-wise are perfectly warmed up, I'm more warming up my bar path and my incline bench press technique here. So I still think it's important just to do a bar. It's worth it, guys. I promise you. And again, slow reps. I could toss this bar like 40 feet in the air if I wanted to. No, actually, but you know what I mean. Still gonna do it pretty slow. To maybe my last one. Now, another little common mistake I see people do, especially with the incline bench, is gotta be really careful not to push the bar away from yourself. A lot of people do this, and I even sometimes do this warming up on the incline just because it's so light. Like when I do my light ones, like just a plate, just a bar, I will push out sometimes. That's really bad. With incline bench, you still have that J curve, but it's less of a curve. It's more subtle. So be very mindful of that, because the second you push away from yourself, your shoulders have to work so much harder to get that weight up. And it's just not an efficient pressing move, like path. So be very, very mindful of that. Again, guys, this should just prove to you, you don't always need music when you live. I still, like, if I had the choice, I'm always going to listen to music. But I used to be that guy where, like, I'd figure out my headphones and I would go back home. Mind you, I probably would have gone home this day to get my headphones, but my bike battery did not have that much left on it. I ride an e-bike to the gym, so I was like, oh, well, I guess we're doing this. Doing it raw today. Okay, on to 2-plate incline. Now, even though I did my static holds and this should feel a lot lighter, and it did feel a lot lighter mentally, but I was still pretty tired at this point. I still did 3 sets of 245 along with my 2 static holds. So I really kind of did 5 sets. Even though this is still a 7-set total day, again, with my kind of program, I prefer to do a little bit less sets, but those sets be more hard, so I get a little bit more progressive overload out of it. That's just me. Again, fatigue-wise, bench is not really high. So I can do a decent amount of sets, and hard sets too. I see some people do like sets of like EP4. That's not a static hold. And I'm like, why? Like, I feel like in my head as a powerlifter, you still need to push hard enough where it's challenging for your body, and you get skill practice, and doesn't fatigue you too much. Like when I do my squat and deadlift days, there's no way I'm doing every set all the way. Like I have a light day, my light heavy, and my heavy day, so I ramp up the fatigue slowly. So again, kind of get used to it. And then ideally add about 5 pounds every cycle of that. Okay, we only do, like I said, only do 2 sets of incline here. The wrists were a little bit hurting. It's kind of tired. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't the greatest mood because I didn't have music. So we'll watch this set and then we'll wrap it up here. If you're wondering why this isn't a squat and deadlift day, it's because my GoPro just didn't have enough battery, and that was totally my fault because I just didn't charge it the day before. But we'll go over this set. I promise you guys next video will actually be a squat and deadlift day, and it will be my light heavy day starting with squats. So that means the next squat video after that, we're hoping for a 1 rep max. Now, really quickly before I go here, I still won't do a static hold on my light heavy day because again, mainly for joints. Even like your back and stuff can kind of hurt afterwards, and it's also a little bit hard on the wrist since I'm going to do low bar. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and just please like and subscribe before you go. See ya.